Look up at the moon, and the question arrives before facts do. Why is it there? Why does it move with such steady care? Why has it watched every city rise and fall without ever leaving? Long before telescopes or equations, people felt that the moon was not random, it was regular, it returned, it ruled nights, tides, months, and memory. Across ancient worlds, the moon was given intention, not because people were foolish, but because pattern invites meaning. When something shapes food, sleep, travel, and ritual, it stops being a rock in the sky and becomes part of life. This chapter begins with that pressure, the human need to believe that what shapes us must have a reason beyond gravity. Today, that hunger has found a new shape. It asks whether the moon itself had a purpose placed there by beings older and wiser than us. The idea feels modern, yet its roots are ancient. To understand it, we must start where belief meets observation. 4,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, people tracked the moon with care and fear. Clay tablets recorded its phases, eclipses, and cycles in tight columns of marks. These records were not science as we know it, but they were disciplined and exact. The moon told farmers when to plant, priests when to act, kings when to rule. It governed calendars that decided taxes, festivals, and labor. The moon god Sin was not distant. He was authority made visible. When the moon vanished in an eclipse, it was read as danger for the state. Rituals followed. Guards stood watch. Prayers were spoken. None of this required hidden machines or visitors from the stars. The purpose was clear and lived every month. Order depended on the sky behaving as expected. When it did not, anxiety followed. Meaning filled the gap. As centuries passed, knowledge grew. Greek thinkers measured shadows. Islamic scholars refined tables. In the 17th century, telescopes revealed craters and mountains. In the 20th century, humans walked its surface. With each step forward, the moon lost mystery but gained detail. Yet something remained. Even with samples and scans, the moon still feels special. It stabilizes Earth's tilt, softens climate swings, and shapes oceans. Life as we know it formed under its pull. That influence feeds a modern question that sounds ancient. If the moon matters this much, was it meant to be here? Some answer with physics, others reach for intention. In recent decades, old names like the Anunnaki have been pulled from tablets and given new roles. Gods become engineers. Myth becomes a mission. This series will not rush to belief or mock it. It will slow down. It will separate what ancient people actually said from what we wish they had said. The moon does not need secrets to be important, but the human need to give it purpose tells us something real about ourselves. That need will guide this investigation carefully forward with patience, evidence, and respect for history and science, together always. The name Anunnaki does not come from modern imagination. It comes from clay tablets written in Sumerian and Akkadian over 4,000 years ago. In those texts, the Anunnaki are a group of gods, not visitors, not engineers, and not beings from another planet. They belong to a religious system shaped by farming, kingship, fear of chaos, and the struggle to explain fate. The word itself likely means offspring of An or princely seed. An was the sky god. His children were powerful, but their power was symbolic and social, not mechanical. Understanding this matters because meaning changes when words are pulled from their world. In the earliest Sumerian sources, the Anunnaki appear as a collective. They do not arrive, they do not build, they do not leave. They exist as part of a divine order that mirrors human society. Just as cities had councils and hierarchies, the gods did too. The Anunnaki often act as judges. They decide destinies. They authorize kings. In some myths, they dwell in the underworld, not the sky. This alone breaks the modern claim. If these beings were space travelers, ancient writers never treated them as such. They were tied to law, death, and balance, not to stars. As Mesopotamian culture evolved, so did the roles of its gods. Akkadian and Babylonian texts reused older names but shifted emphasis. The Anunnaki sometimes fade into the background as other gods take prominence. Enlil governs wind and authority. Enki governs wisdom and water. Sin governs the moon. Shamash governs justice and the Sunday. Each had temples, priests, and festivals. The Anunnaki were not a single ruling race. They were part of a crowded divine world where functions overlapped and changed over time. This fluidity is normal in religion. It is not evidence of hidden technology. The most important point is how these texts were used. They were recited in temples. They were copied by scribes. They were tools of teaching and control. Myths explained why kings ruled, why floods happened, and why suffering existed. When people read that the Anunnaki fixed destinies, they were hearing reassurance that chaos had limits. The gods watched. Order existed. That message mattered in a land where rivers could destroy fields overnight. It was emotional truth, not technical instruction. No surviving tablet describes the Anunnaki constructing the moon or placing it in orbit. No text links them to spacecraft, mining, or planets beyond the visible sky. Those ideas appear thousands of years later, after spaceflight became imaginable. When ancient people looked up, they saw gods, because gods were how they organized reality. To read the Anunnaki as aliens is to replace one belief system with another, not to uncover hidden history. If we want to know what the Anunnaki actually were, we must let the ancient sources speak in their own voice, not ours. Accuracy begins by respecting context, language, and purpose. Because without that discipline, ancient belief collapses into modern fantasy, and understanding is replaced by projection and careful study. Clay tablets do not explain themselves. Every idea we have about ancient Mesopotamia passes through layers of survival, damage, discovery, and interpretation. Cuneiform is not an alphabet. It is a system of wedge-shaped marks pressed into wet clay, first used around 3300 before the Common Era. Each sign can represent a sound, a word, or an idea depending on context. A single symbol may mean sky, God, or heaven. Another may mean place, direction, or foundation. This flexibility allowed scribes to express complex thought, but it also makes translation slow and uncertain. There is no single correct reading frozen in time. Meaning depends on grammar, genre, and purpose. Most surviving tablets come from temples, palaces, or schools. They were written by trained scribes, not casual observers. Some texts record offerings, grain counts, or labor. Others preserve hymns, prayers, omens, and myths. Each type follows its own rules. A ritual text speaks differently than a legal one. A myth uses metaphor, where an accounting tablet demands precision. When modern readers flatten all tablets into the same category, errors follow. Poetry is mistaken for instruction. Symbol becomes device. That shift is small on the page, but massive in meaning. Translation adds another layer. Many words in Sumerian and Akkadian have no direct modern equivalent. Scholars compare usage across hundreds of tablets to approximate meaning. Even then, disagreement remains. A verb might suggest creation, separation, or assignment depending on context. A noun might mean heaven in one line and authority in another. When translators note uncertainty, it is often lost in popular retellings. Footnotes disappear, probable meanings harden into absolute claims. Over time, speculation replaces caution. This is how modern misunderstandings grow. A phrase describing gods fixing destinies becomes a claim about engineering projects. A word meaning descent becomes travel from space. A poetic line about shining becomes literal technology. None of this comes from the tablets themselves. It comes from reading ancient language through modern expectation. The people who wrote these texts did not think in terms of rockets or planets beyond what the eye could see. Their universe was layered vertically. Sky above, earth in the middle, underworld below. Power moved through these layers symbolically, not mechanically. The rediscovery of cuneiform in the 19th century changed everything. Scholars like Henry Rawlinson and others spent decades copying inscriptions and comparing signs. Progress was slow and careful. Even today, new readings appear as more tablets are published. Museums hold thousands still untranslated. This means certainty should be rare. When a claim about ancient texts sounds too neat, it usually is. Real scholarship moves slowly because it respects ambiguity. Understanding the Anunnaki or any ancient concept requires accepting limits. We can know a great deal about how these people thought, but only if we listen on their terms. Translation is not decoding a secret message. It is an act of restraint. Small wording shifts can reshape entire narratives. And when those shifts serve modern desires for mystery or control, history is bent into something it never was. Respecting the difficulty of translation is not weakness, it is the foundation of truth. When ancient Mesopotamian texts speak of the Anunnaki, they place them firmly within the structure of the world, not beyond it. These gods are not described as descending from distant stars or ruling from the edges of the cosmos. They are embedded in the moral and political order of the land between the rivers. Their authority flows through law, judgment, and fate. In many sources, the Anunnaki are associated with the underworld, the realm where destinies are finalized and where the dead are governed. This alone reframes them. They are not watchers from above, they are enforcers below, ensuring balance continues after life ends. In myths such as those surrounding the goddess Ereshkigal, the Anunnaki appear as judges who sit in council. They decide outcomes, they confirm sentences. Their power is administrative and judicial. This mirrors human institutions closely. Kings ruled with councils, cities operated with courts. The gods reflected this structure. Divine order justified human order. When a king claimed authority, it was because the gods had sanctioned it. The Anunnaki were part of that sanctioning system. Their purpose was to make power feel inevitable and sacred. Law was central to Mesopotamian life. Survival depended on coordination. Irrigation canals required shared labor. Harvests required timing. Disputes had to be settled quickly. The gods were woven into these needs. Shamash represented justice. Sin represented time and cycles. The Anunnaki represented the deeper framework that made justice binding. When texts say they fix destinies, it means outcomes are not random. There is a system. Even suffering fits within order. This belief reduced fear in a harsh environment where floods, droughts, and disease were constant threats. Nothing in these roles suggests technology. There are no descriptions of tools, machines, or construction beyond temples built by humans for gods. When creation appears in myth, it is symbolic. The gods shape the world by naming it or assigning roles. Language creates reality. This is very different from engineering. Modern readers often confuse metaphor with mechanism. When a god separates heaven and earth, it is not an act of physics. It is a way to explain why the world has layers and limits. The underworld focus is especially important. Many Anunnaki myths locate them beneath the earth. They govern shadows and silence. This placement reflects fear of death and the unknown. It does not align with the idea of beings who traveled freely through space. Ancient people imagined power moving vertically, not outward into deep space. Above was the sky god. Below was the realm of judgment. Earth sat between, watched and regulated. By grounding the Anunnaki in their true roles, the mystery does not vanish, it sharpens. These gods mattered deeply because they answered the hardest questions of life. Why does fate feel fixed? Why do rulers rule? Why does order survive chaos? The answers were not mechanical. They were moral and social. To turn the Anunnaki into engineers is to strip them of their real function. They were gods of structure, not builders of worlds. Understanding this keeps history intact and allows ancient belief to be understood rather than rewritten. For the people of ancient Mesopotamia, the sky was not distant or abstract. It was active, readable, and tied directly to survival. Among all celestial bodies, the moon held special weight. Its phases were easy to track and impossible to ignore. From thin crescent to full disk and back again, the moon provided a visible rhythm that shaped daily life. Farmers watched it to plan planting and harvest. Priests watched it to schedule rituals. Kings watched it because the calendar controlled taxes, labor, and legitimacy. Mesopotamian scholars recorded the moon with discipline. Tablets list month, lengths, sightings, and anomalies stretching back centuries. These records were not casual notes. They were state documents. Accuracy mattered because errors meant chaos. A misjudged festival could anger the gods. A missed omen could signal danger for the ruler. Lunar eclipses were especially feared. When the moon darkened unexpectedly, it was read as a warning to the king. Ritual substitutes were sometimes installed so that fate would strike a stand-in rather than the true ruler. This was not superstition without structure. It was a system designed to manage fear and uncertainty. The moon god Sin stood at the center of this system. He was associated with wisdom, time, and order. His temples at and Haran were among the most important religious centers in the region. Priests there observed the sky night after night. Their goal was not curiosity for its own sake. It was prediction. If the heavens followed rules, then the future could be prepared for. Astronomy and religion were not separate. They were the same activity viewed from different sides. Calendars based on the moon governed everything. Months began with the first visible crescent. Adjustments were made to keep seasons aligned. These decisions were political. Whoever controlled the calendar controlled public life. Workdays, feast days, and obligations all flowed from lunar timekeeping. This gave the moon power beyond symbolism. It organized society. That organization was then justified by divine authority. Omens tied sky events to earthly outcomes. A bright halo might signal abundance. A dim moon might warn of famine. These interpretations were collected into omen lists, studied by trained experts. They were not random guesses. They were patterns built from generations of observation. The goal was stability. If signs could be read, then disaster might be avoided or softened through ritual. What matters here is framing. The moon was powerful because it regulated life. It was not mysterious because it was hidden. It was sacred because it was reliable. No text suggests the moon was artificial or placed with intention by beings from elsewhere. Its importance came from visibility and effect. The sky mattered because it shaped behavior and belief at the same time. The moon became humanity's first clock long before gears or numbers existed. Its steady cycle offered something rare in the ancient world: predictability. In Mesopotamia, where rivers flooded without warning and seasons could shift harshly, the moon provided structure. Each visible phase marked progress. The return of the crescent signaled a new month. That signal mattered. It told farmers when to prepare fields. It told priests when rituals must begin. It told officials when obligations were due. Time was not abstract. It was enforced by the sky. Lunar months shaped agriculture directly. Planting and harvesting depended on seasonal timing, and seasons were tracked through months. Because the lunar year did not align perfectly with the solar year, priests added extra months when needed. This adjustment kept crops aligned with climate. It was careful work. If the calendar slipped, hunger followed. The moon did not just mark time. It protected survival through coordination. That coordination required authority. Only trained observers could declare a new month. Their word carried power. Taxes followed the moon. Grain payments, labor service, and offerings were all scheduled by the calendar. Miss the date and penalties followed. This tied the sky to economics. Timekeeping became governance. Kings understood this clearly. By claiming divine approval over the calendar, rulers justified control. When the moon was read correctly, order held. When it was not, unrest grew. The calendar was not neutral. It was a political tool grounded in celestial rhythm. Festivals reinforced this structure. Religious celebrations marked lunar events. Full moons and new moons brought communal gatherings. These moments renewed loyalty between people, gods, and rulers. Attendance mattered. Absence could be interpreted as disobedience. Through repetition, the calendar trained society to move together. Shared time became shared identity. The moon created unity without walls or force. Its authority felt natural because it came from the sky. Imperial administration expanded this system. As empires grew, coordination became harder. Distant cities needed synchronized schedules. Lunar calendars provided that link. Messengers carried month declarations across regions. Officials aligned records and duties accordingly. This was administration built on observation rather than invention. The moon allowed vast systems to function with limited technology. It was efficient because everyone could see it. This is where purpose becomes clear. The moon did not need secrecy to matter. Its value came from openness. Everyone could verify its phase. That visibility created trust. When people agree on time, they can plan together. That agreement is the foundation of civilization. Later generations sometimes mistake this importance for hidden design, but the truth is simpler and stronger. The moon's purpose was social. It made coordination possible. It turned chaos into schedule. Ancient people did not ask whether the moon was placed there. They asked how to live under it. Their answer was order. Fields were planted, taxes were collected, festivals were held, empires endured. The moon kept time, and time kept society together. That purpose was not secret. It was written across the sky every night for anyone willing to look. The idea of the Anunnaki as extraterrestrial beings does not come from ancient Mesopotamia. It begins in the 20th century, shaped by modern anxieties, modern technology, and modern imagination. For thousands of years, the Anunnaki existed only in academic texts, studied by specialists who read cuneiform and argued quietly over translations. Outside universities and museums, few people knew the name at all. That changed after the middle of the 20th century, when space travel moved from fiction into reality, and the sky began to feel reachable. After the Second World War, rockets, satellites, and nuclear weapons altered how humans thought about power. The launch of Sputnik in 1957 and the moon landing in 1969 made the idea of advanced beings from elsewhere feel plausible. At the same time, trust in institutions weakened. Governments kept secrets. Science advanced faster than public understanding. Into this gap stepped new interpretations of ancient texts. Old myths were reread through a modern lens. Gods became visitors. Symbols became machines. Popular books played a key role. Authors without training in Assyriology began publishing alternative histories that claimed hidden truths. They argued that mainstream scholars were ignoring evidence or hiding it. These claims were persuasive to readers because they offered clarity. Instead of slow, uncertain scholarship, they promised answers. The Anunnaki were recast as a single advanced race. Their divine authority became technological superiority. Their presence in myth became proof of ancient contact. This shift relied on selective reading. Complex texts were simplified. Ambiguous words were given fixed meanings that supported dramatic conclusions. Context was removed. Thousands of tablets that described ritual lore and poetry were ignored in favor of a few lines that could be stretched. No new archaeological discoveries supported these ideas. The change happened entirely in interpretation. The past did not change. The story told about it did. Media amplified the effect. Television documentaries, radio shows, and later the internet spread these ideas far beyond academic circles. Visual language made claims feel real. Images of pyramids, spacecraft, and planets appeared beside ancient symbols. Repetition created familiarity. Familiarity created belief. Over time, the alien Anunnaki narrative began to feel old, even though it was younger than most modern nations. What matters is not mocking belief, but understanding origin. The extraterrestrial Anunnaki story reflects modern culture more than ancient one. It expresses distrust of authority, fascination with technology, and a desire for cosmic importance. It suggests that human civilization needed help to begin. That message resonates in times of uncertainty. But resonance is not evidence. When ancient Mesopotamians wrote about their gods, they were explaining power, order, and fate within their world. When modern writers turn those gods into aliens, they are explaining their own world, fears, and hopes. This chapter marks the pivot. The Anunnaki did not change. The questions people asked about them did. To move forward honestly, we must keep that distinction clear. The modern image of the Anunnaki as alien visitors is closely tied to the work of one man, Zecharia Sitchin. Beginning in the 1970s, Sitchin published a series of books that claimed ancient Mesopotamian texts described extraterrestrial beings who came to Earth from another planet. According to his interpretation, these beings created humanity and shaped civilization for their own purposes. His books reached a wide audience and remain influential today. They appeared authoritative, filled with references to tablets, gods, and ancient languages. But authority and accuracy are not the same thing. Sitchin was not trained as an Assyriologist. He did not work within the academic field that studies Sumerian and Akkadian texts. Instead, he offered his own translations of cuneiform words, often disagreeing with every major dictionary and grammar used by scholars. He claimed that mainstream experts were either mistaken or deliberately hiding the truth. This framing was powerful. It cast readers as insiders discovering forbidden knowledge. It also insulated his ideas from correction. Disagreement became proof of conspiracy rather than evidence of error. The core problem lies in translation. Sitchin assigned meanings to words that they do not carry in any verified context. Terms referring to gods or authority were redefined as physical beings. Poetic language was treated as literal description. Words that scholars translate as crossing or assignment were rendered as space travel. No peer-reviewed research supports these readings. When Assyriologists examined his claims, they found consistent misinterpretation and selective citation. Entire passages were ignored if they contradicted the alien narrative. Mainstream Assyriology operates differently. Scholars compare thousands of tablets across centuries. Meanings are tested through usage, not preference. When uncertainty exists, it is stated openly. There is no single secret text that overturns the field. Instead, understanding grows slowly as more material is studied. Within this body of work, there is no evidence that the Anunnaki were anything other than gods within a religious system. No planet, no spacecraft, no genetic engineering. Despite this, Sitchin's ideas spread widely. They arrived at a moment when space exploration captured public imagination and trust in experts was declining. His books offered a grand explanation for human origins that felt both ancient and futuristic. Media appearances and later internet communities extended their reach. Over time, his interpretations became detached from their source. Many people now encounter the Anunnaki story without ever hearing about the original texts or the scholarly response. It is important to understand rejection is not dismissal. Scholars did not ignore Sitchin. They responded directly. Articles, lectures, and translations explain where his readings fail. The disagreement is not subtle, it is fundamental. The languages do not support his conclusions. The tablets do not say what he claimed. This does not mean curiosity is wrong, it means method matters. Sitchin did not uncover a hidden past. He created a new myth using ancient names. That myth tells us more about modern desires for cosmic meaning than about Mesopotamian belief. Recognizing this does not diminish the wonder of ancient culture. It protects it. Truth survives best when evidence leads and imagination follows. The word Nibiru carries weight today because it sounds specific and hidden, but in ancient Mesopotamian texts, it was neither fixed nor mysterious. Nibiru appears in Akkadian sources as a descriptive term, not as the name of a single planet. Its meaning is often translated as crossing point or place of transition. What it refers to depends entirely on context. In some texts, Nibiru is linked to a star, in others to a planet. In still others, it functions as a symbolic marker within a larger system of omens. There is no single object that always carries the name. Astronomical texts from Babylon show this clearly. Priests tracked the movements of visible planets and stars with care. They assigned names based on behavior, position, and timing. Nibiru could refer to Jupiter in certain contexts, especially when Jupiter crossed a particular point in the sky. In other cases, it may refer to Mercury or to a fixed star. The key detail is flexibility. Nibiru was not a body with a stable orbit and permanent identity. It was a role within observation, not a secret world waiting to return. Nibiru also appears in omen literature. These texts linked sky events to earthly outcomes. A planet appearing at the crossing point could signal change. That change might mean danger or blessing depending on other signs. The sky was read as a language. Nibiru was a word in that language. It did not exist outside the sentence. This makes it very different from how modern retellings present it. The transformation of Nibiru into a hidden planet begins in the late 20th century. Modern writers collapsed its many uses into one idea. Nibiru became a single massive body on a long orbit, unseen but returning on a fixed schedule. This version does not appear in any ancient source. It requires ignoring context and treating symbolic language as technical description. Once that step is taken, anything becomes possible. Science also poses problems for the modern Nibiru claim. A planet large enough to influence Earth repeatedly would leave clear evidence. Its gravity would affect known planetary orbits. Telescopes would detect it. Astronomical surveys have found none. Ancient observers could not track what modern instruments cannot see. The idea that they secretly recorded such a body while leaving no consistent description strains credibility. What remains is a lesson in interpretation. Ancient sky watchers named patterns they could see. They worked with naked eye observation and careful record keeping. Their system was sophisticated but limited to the visible sky. Nibiru fit within that system. It explained movement and meaning together. It did not point to an unseen threat waiting beyond the stars. The modern version of Nibiru persists because it feels dramatic and purposeful. It turns uncertainty into narrative. But the ancient word does not support that story. Nibiru was never one thing. It shifted as the sky shifted. Treating it as a single hidden planet removes its real function and replaces it with fear. Understanding Nibiru correctly does not reduce mystery, it restores accuracy. The sky was meaningful without being deceptive. The danger lies not in what ancient people believed, but in how easily modern readers reshape their words to fit new expectations. The moon invites questions because it refuses to feel ordinary. It is large compared to its planet. It always shows the same face. It sits at a distance that allows total eclipses, a coincidence so precise it feels intentional. These facts are real and well documented, and they are often the starting point for speculation. When people say the moon feels artificial, they are responding to genuine oddities, not inventing them. The mistake comes when curiosity skips evidence and jumps straight to conclusions. One of the oldest questions concerns origin. How did the moon form? For much of history, there was no answer beyond myth. In the 20th century, science proposed several models. Capture suggested the moon wandered close and was trapped. Fission suggested Earth spun so fast it threw material outward. Co-formation suggested Earth and Moon formed together. Each had problems. None explained all observations. This uncertainty fed imagination. When experts disagree, mystery feels justified. Composition raised more questions. Samples returned during the Apollo missions showed that moon rocks resemble Earth rocks more than expected. Oxygen isotopes are nearly identical. That similarity is unusual if the moon formed elsewhere. At the same time, the moon lacks certain elements found on Earth, like large amounts of iron in its core. These mixed signals made the moon feel strange, familiar and alien at once. Complexity invites storytelling. The moon also behaves differently than intuition expects. Its density is lower than Earth's. Its seismic activity is weak but long-lasting. When instruments left by astronauts recorded impacts, vibrations continued for extended periods. This led to the famous phrase that the moon rang like a bell. The phrase was descriptive, not literal, but it spread widely. Over time, it became shorthand for the idea that the moon is hollow. In reality, the data suggests a dry, rigid interior, not an empty shell. Surface features add to the effect. The near side and far side look very different. One is dark with wide plains. The other is heavily cratered. This asymmetry is striking. It has geological explanations related to crust thickness and volcanic history, but it still feels unusual. When explanations are technical, they often fail to satisfy emotional curiosity. The gap between feeling and fact widens. All of this creates fertile ground for secret narratives. The moon becomes a puzzle box. When ancient myths are added to modern science, boundaries blur. People begin to ask whether ancient gods knew more than we do, whether the moon was placed deliberately, whether its odd traits are signs of design. These questions sound reasonable because they begin with real observations. What matters is how we respond to mystery. Science does not eliminate wonder, it refines it. Each unusual feature pushes understanding forward. The moon is not strange because it hides secrets. It is strange because nature produces outcomes that feel unlikely. That feeling is human. It does not require external builders to be meaningful. The moon invites speculation because it sits between knowledge and imagination. Close enough to study, distant enough to feel removed. Its questions sound like secrets because humans are wired to look for intention. The challenge is to let evidence guide wonder rather than replace it. Mystery does not mean manipulation. Sometimes it simply means we are still learning how the universe works. Science approaches the moon without myth, but not without awe. The leading explanation for the moon's origin is known as the giant impact hypothesis. It proposes that early in Earth's history, roughly 4,500,000,000 years ago, a Mars-sized body collided with the young Earth. The impact was catastrophic. Vast amounts of material were blasted into orbit. Over time, that debris gathered and cooled, forming the moon. This idea sounds dramatic because planetary formation was violent. Stability came later. The strength of the giant impact model lies in how well it fits multiple lines of evidence. It explains why the moon has a relatively small iron core. Much of the metal from both bodies would have sunk into Earth, leaving lighter material to form the moon. It also explains why the moon lacks volatile elements. The heat of impact would have driven them away. These details matter. They turn theory into testable explanation. Moon rocks returned by astronauts support this model. Their composition closely matches Earth's mantle rather than Earth's core. Oxygen isotopes are nearly identical. This suggests a shared origin. At the same time, differences remain. The moon is drier. Its internal structure is simpler. These variations fit the idea of material mixed and altered by extreme heat. They do not suggest an object built elsewhere and placed gently into orbit. Computer simulations have strengthened the case. Modern models show that a glancing collision could produce a stable Earth-Moon system. Early versions struggled to explain isotope similarity, but newer simulations include better physics and show how mixing could occur. Science adjusts as evidence grows. This is not weakness, it is method. Alternative models have largely fallen away because they fail to explain key facts. Capture requires precise conditions that are unlikely and does not explain composition. Fission cannot account for angular momentum. Co-formation struggles with density differences. The giant impact model remains because it answers more questions than it raises. That is why it is favored. Conspiracy thrives where understanding feels incomplete. The giant impact hypothesis leaves room for refinement, not replacement. Some hear uncertainty and assume deception, but uncertainty is openly discussed in scientific literature. There is no hidden data pointing to artificial construction. No measurements suggest hollow interiors, internal machinery, or unnatural materials. Every probe and mission adds detail, not doubt. Separating awe from conspiracy is essential. A natural origin does not make the moon less special. If anything, it makes it more so. A collision that could have destroyed Earth instead created conditions for long-term stability. The moon stabilized Earth's tilt. It shaped tides. It influenced climate over billions of years. These effects are measurable and profound. The moon does not need builders to matter. It does not need secret purpose to be important. Its story is written in rock chemistry, orbital mechanics, and time. Science does not remove meaning. It replaces fantasy with something harder and more impressive. A universe that can create such balance through chaos is not empty, it is powerful. Understanding the moon's origin does not close the door on wonder. It opens it wider, grounded in evidence and respect for reality. The idea that someone could build a moon sounds simple until scale enters the picture. The moon is not a small object. Its mass is more than 7 sextillion tons. Moving that much material requires energy far beyond anything humans can produce. Even imagining a civilization millions of years more advanced does not remove the problem. Physics does not bend easily. Energy must come from somewhere, heat must go somewhere, effects leave traces. To assemble a moon deliberately, material would have to be gathered, transported, shaped, and placed into stable orbit. Each step carries consequences. Gathering enough rock would strip planets or asteroids to their cores. Transporting it would release enormous energy detectable across space. Assembly would generate heat visible for long periods. None of this leaves a quiet signature. The solar system does not show evidence of such disruption in Earth's past. Orbital dynamics add another barrier. The moon's orbit is finely balanced. It is large enough to stabilize Earth's axial tilt without pulling the planet apart. That balance emerged gradually. Simulations show it evolving over billions of years. An object placed suddenly into orbit would produce chaos. Tides would spike. Earth's rotation could change violently. Geological records do not show signs of such a recent insertion. Instead, they show gradual change consistent with natural formation. An artificial structure would also behave differently under stress. Internal cavities, machinery, or layered construction would alter density patterns. Modern missions have mapped the moon's gravity in detail. The results match a natural body shaped by cooling and impact. Variations exist, but they align with known geology. There are no symmetrical voids, no repeating internal structures, no anomalies that require design to explain. Some point to the moon's hollow-sounding reputation. As discussed earlier, this comes from misunderstood seismic data. The moon is dry and rigid. Vibrations travel farther than on Earth because there is little water to absorb them. This makes impacts resonate longer. It does not mean the moon is empty. Seismic profiles confirm layered structure with crust, mantle, and core. That is what physics predicts. Detectable signatures matter most. Advanced engineering leaves marks. Waste heat-altered isotopes and unnatural materials would stand out. Lunar samples show none. They match expectations for a body formed from Earth, like material under extreme heat. Even isotopic ratios align with natural mixing. No exotic alloys, no manufactured composites, just rock shaped by time. The engineering fantasy often assumes that advanced beings could hide their work perfectly. This assumes perfection beyond physical law. Even nature cannot hide its processes. Mountains reveal uplift. Craters reveal impact. Planets reveal formation through chemistry and motion. A built moon would reveal itself through inconsistency. It does not. Testing the idea seriously means accepting its consequences. A constructed moon would require evidence equal to its scale. That evidence does not exist. What does exist is a natural explanation that fits observation across disciplines. Astronomy, geology, physics, and chemistry all point in the same direction. Asking whether anyone could build a moon is not foolish. It reflects curiosity about possibility. But possibility must answer to reality. When fantasy is measured against mass, energy, and motion, it collapses under its own weight. The moon remains remarkable without builders. Its existence challenges understanding without breaking it. Reality proves more demanding and more impressive than any hidden hand could be. The phrase that the moon rang like a bell has traveled far from its original meaning. It comes from seismic experiments conducted during the Apollo missions in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Astronauts placed seismometers on the lunar surface to measure internal activity. When spent rocket stages were deliberately crashed into the moon, the instruments recorded vibrations that lasted longer than similar events on Earth. Scientists described this behavior using familiar language. The moon rang. Over time, description became distortion. The extended vibration did not suggest emptiness. It reflected dryness and rigidity. On Earth, seismic waves are quickly dampened by water, fractured rock, and a dynamic interior. The moon lacks these features. Its interior is cooler, more rigid, and far drier. Seismic energy travels farther and loses strength more slowly. The effect is comparable to tapping a solid block of metal rather than a sponge. Sound lingers not because there is a hollow space, but because there is little to absorb it. Lunar seismology has advanced since those early experiments. Data from Apollo instruments allowed scientists to map the moon's internal layers. The moon has a crust mantle and core. The core is smaller and less active than Earth's, but it exists. Measurements of density and moment of inertia match a solid body. If the moon were hollow, gravity data would reveal it immediately. Instead, gravity maps show mass concentrations linked to ancient impact basins filled with denser material. The hollow moon idea persists because it fits intuition. A ringing sound feels empty. A shell feels artificial. But intuition struggles with planetary scale. The moon is nearly 3,500 kilometers wide. A hollow structure of that size would collapse under its own gravity unless supported by materials stronger than anything known. No evidence suggests such materials exist naturally or artificially on the moon. Misunderstanding also comes from selective quotation. Early scientists used vivid language to communicate results. That language was never meant to imply construction. Later retellings removed context and replaced explanation with implication. A metaphor became a claim. Once repeated often enough, it gained the weight of fact in popular culture. Modern missions reinforce earlier conclusions. Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and Grail mapped the moon's gravity with extreme precision. The results align with a body shaped by impacts cooling and gradual differentiation. There are no large internal voids, no hidden chambers, no signs of structural reinforcement. The moon behaves exactly as a natural satellite should. Seismic myths often grow where data feels technical. When explanations require patience, they lose ground to dramatic alternatives. The hollow moon idea offers a shortcut. It turns complex measurement into a simple reveal. But simplicity is not accuracy. The real story is more detailed and more grounded. Understanding what the data actually shows restores clarity. The moon is quiet because it is old. It rings because it is rigid. It lacks water because it lost volatiles early in its formation. Each trait fits a coherent picture. None require secrecy. The moon does not hide machines, it holds history. Its surface records billions of years of impacts. Its interior preserves clues to early planetary formation. Seismic data opened a window into that story. The problem was never the data. It was how easily metaphor escaped its frame and became myth. When science speaks carefully, wonder remains intact without inventing emptiness where none exists. The moon shapes Earth in ways that can be measured, tested, and confirmed. Its influence is constant and physical, not symbolic or hidden. The most visible effect is the tide. The moon's gravity pulls on Earth's oceans, creating regular rises and falls that repeat daily. These tides mix nutrients along coastlines, shape marine ecosystems, and influence weather patterns. Without the moon, tides would still exist due to the sun, but they would be far weaker and less stable. Coastal life would look very different. The moon also stabilizes Earth's axial tilt. Earth does not spin straight up and down, it leans. That lean creates seasons. Over long periods, gravitational interactions can cause a planet's tilt to wobble chaotically. The moon acts as an anchor. Its presence keeps Earth's tilt within a narrow range. This stability prevents extreme climate swings that could make long-term life difficult. Mars, which lacks a large moon, shows how unstable tilt can reshape climate over time. Climate rhythms are also tied to the moon. Tidal forces affect ocean circulation, which in turn influences heat distribution across the planet. Over thousands of years, these interactions contribute to patterns that shape ice ages and warm periods. The moon does not control climate alone, but it plays a role within a complex system. That role is subtle but real. Night illumination mattered deeply before artificial light. The moon extended useful hours after sunset. Full moon nights allowed travel, hunting, and social activity. Many animals adapted their behavior around lunar light. Predators hunted more effectively. Prey adjusted movement. Humans timed activity accordingly. This rhythm influenced sleep patterns and cultural practices. Calendars, rituals, and myths grew around predictable light in darkness. Evolutionary pressure followed these patterns. Life along tidal zones adapted to regular flooding and retreat. Species developed cycles tied to lunar phases. Reproduction, feeding, and migration often follow the moon. These adaptations took millions of years. They are written into biology. No external planning is needed to explain them. Natural selection responds to regular forces. Archaeology shows that early human settlements clustered near coasts and rivers influenced by tides. Fishing, gathering, and trade benefited from predictable water movement. Over time, societies learned to read and plan around lunar cycles. This knowledge supported growth. The moon became embedded in survival strategies. All of this influence comes from gravity, motion, and light. It requires no intervention. The moon's position and mass happen to create conditions favorable to life. That does not mean they were arranged with intent. It means the universe can produce balance through natural processes. When people search for hidden purpose, they often overlook what is already present. The moon's real influence is visible in oceans, climate, biology, and history. It shaped Earth quietly over billions of years. That shaping did not require design. It required consistency. Ancient people explained influence through gods because gods matched how power felt. Authority came from above. Fate felt fixed. Nature obeyed patterns beyond human control. Myth translated those experiences into stories that gave meaning and limits. When a god ruled the sky or the moon, it did not mean machinery, it meant authority. The god's power explained why order held and why humans could not change everything. Divine authority was not about mechanics, it was about legitimacy. In Mesopotamia, gods justified kingship. If a ruler governed, it was because the gods approved. This belief kept society stable. Law felt binding because it was sacred. The Anunnaki fixed destinies not by altering matter but by confirming outcomes. Myth worked as social technology. It shaped behavior. It aligned people with shared expectations. Influence flowed through belief and ritual. Modern pseudoscience keeps the influence but changes the explanation. Gods become astronauts. Authority becomes technology. Instead of divine will, there are machines. Instead of fate, there are plans. The feeling remains the same. Something greater controls outcomes. Humans are not alone. Civilization did not arise by chance. The difference lies in language, not function. This shift reflects modern values. Technology is the highest power of the modern world. When people imagine beings more advanced than humans, they imagine better tools. Spaceships replace chariots. Lasers replace lightning. Control is explained through engineering rather than myth. The story adapts to the culture telling it. Pseudoscience often claims to be more rational than myth, but it relies on belief in hidden systems without evidence. Ancient myths were open. Everyone knew they were symbolic. Rituals acknowledged mystery. Modern astronaut gods are presented as literal truth while avoiding verification. They borrow the authority of science without following its method. The contrast reveals something important. Myth explained influence in ways that matched lived experience. The sun rose, the moon returned, seasons followed. Gods made sense of that regularity. Modern pseudoscience explains influence in ways that match technological anxiety. Satellites watch. Governments hide information. Systems feel unseen. Control feels distant. Astronaut gods mirror those fears. Historical accuracy matters here. No ancient text describes gods using machines to control Earth. No tablet speaks of rockets or laboratories. Those details enter later. They do not come from translation. They come from imagination shaped by modern context. When myth is reread as technology, meaning is lost. The lesson ancient stories offered was not instruction. It was orientation. Understanding this difference prevents confusion. Ancient gods were not failed scientists. They were answers to social and moral questions. Modern astronaut gods are not discoveries. They are reinterpretations shaped by distrust and wonder mixed together. Both systems try to answer the same question. Why does the world feel ordered yet beyond control? Myth answered with authority. Pseudoscience answers with machinery. Neither changes gravity or history. One is honest about symbolism. The other hides belief behind technical language. Recognizing this does not require choosing sides. It requires clarity. Influence can be real without secret devices. The moon shaped Earth through gravity, not governance. Ancient people used gods to explain that influence. Modern culture uses technology. The danger is mistaking the explanation for evidence. When myth and pseudoscience are separated, the past becomes clearer and the present becomes easier to understand. Timekeeping looks neutral until someone controls it. In ancient societies, calendars were not simple tools for marking days. They were instruments of authority. In Mesopotamia, lunar calendars shaped nearly every aspect of public life. The start of a month determined when work began, when taxes were due, when festivals occurred, and when contracts were enforced. Whoever declared the calendar held quiet power over the rhythm of society. Lunar timekeeping required expertise. The first visible crescent had to be observed and confirmed. Clouds could delay sighting, disagreements could arise. Priests trained in astronomy held this responsibility. Their announcements carried weight because they were framed as divine knowledge. The moon god sanctioned time. Human authority followed. When priests spoke, cities moved. Kings depended on this system. Legitimacy rested on alignment with the heavens. A ruler who ignored proper timing risked appearing impious. That appearance could be dangerous. Inscriptions often link successful reigns to correct ritual timing. Failures are blamed on neglected observance. Time became morality. Obedience to the calendar meant obedience to the state. Festivals reinforced loyalty. Religious celebrations tied to lunar phases gathered people together. They reminded communities of shared belief and shared obligation. Attendance mattered. Participation signaled acceptance of order. The calendar ensured these moments arrived predictably. Repetition built habit. Habit built stability. Labor was also scheduled by lunar time. Agricultural work followed months. Corvée labor for canals, temples, and walls was assigned by date. Missing service carried penalties. The moon regulated effort as much as belief. Timekeeping turned natural cycles into managed productivity. As empires expanded, calendars became administrative glue. Regions with different local customs were synchronized under imperial rule. A shared lunar calendar unified distant cities. Records matched. Orders traveled more easily. This coordination allowed control without constant force. Time did the work quietly. Adjustments reveal power most clearly. Because lunar years drift from solar seasons, extra months had to be added. Deciding when to insert them was not purely technical. It affected harvest schedules, tax collection, and religious timing. These decisions came from the center. They demonstrated who commanded alignment between heaven and earth. This system explains why the moon mattered so deeply. It was not mysterious because it was hidden. It was powerful because it was visible and shared. Everyone could see the same sky. Agreement came from observation backed by authority. The moon made order feel natural. Modern readers sometimes mistake this control for evidence of secret knowledge. In reality, it was public knowledge carefully managed. No advanced technology was needed, just patience, observation, and hierarchy. Understanding calendars as tools of power clarifies ancient priorities. Survival required coordination. Coordination required time. Time required agreement. The moon provided the reference. Kings and priests provided enforcement. This was the moon's purpose in governance. It structured life without force. It turned celestial motion into social discipline. The system endured for centuries because it worked. When later myths speak of gods fixing destinies, they reflect this structure. Fate followed schedule. Authority followed timing. Control flowed through the calendar. Recognizing this removes the need for hidden explanations. Power does not require secrecy to be effective. Sometimes, it only requires everyone agreeing on when the month begins. Purpose feels comforting because it reduces uncertainty. Humans search for intention because intention suggests order and protection. When events have a reason, even painful ones feel easier to endure. Randomness offers no reassurance. This preference is ancient. Long before science, people assumed that powerful forces acted with intent. Storms were sent, seasons were given. The moon returned because something wanted it to return. Meaning filled the space where control was absent. Psychology explains part of this pull. The human brain evolved to detect patterns quickly. Seeing intent helped survival. If movement in the grass meant a hunter, assuming purpose saved lives. This habit did not stop at animals. It extended to the sky. A steady moon felt personal because it was reliable. Reliability feels like care. Care feels intentional. Celestial objects intensify this effect because they are constant. Mountains erode. Rivers change course. The moon stays. It watches births, harvests, wars, and deaths without blinking. That presence invites relationship. Across cultures, people spoke to the moon, sang to it, and marked their lives by it. Accident does not inspire devotion. Purpose does. When science describes the moon as the result of collision and gravity, it removes intent. For many, this feels unsatisfying. A violent impact sounds careless. It lacks narrative comfort. Saying the moon was placed for a reason restores that comfort. It turns chance into plan. This does not make the plan true. It makes it emotionally appealing. Modern theories about ancient builders tap into this same need. They offer a bridge between science and myth. Technology replaces gods, but keeps intention. Someone chose this outcome. Someone designed the system. Humans are not alone or insignificant. That message soothes anxiety in a complex world. Historical belief systems handled this openly. Myths acknowledged symbolism. People knew gods explained experience rather than mechanics. Modern pseudoscience blurs that line. It presents emotional explanations as factual ones. Purpose is smuggled into science language without evidence. The moon feels personal because it shaped life directly. Night light changed behavior. Tides changed food access. Cycles changed sleep. When something influences daily life, people seek reasons. Intent is easier to accept than coincidence. Understanding this preference helps separate feeling from fact. Wanting purpose does not make accident false. It reveals human needs. Science answers how. Belief answers why. Problems arise when why pretends to be how. The moon does not need intent to matter. Its influence is real, regardless of origin. Accepting that can feel uncomfortable. It removes a protector from the sky, but it also places meaning back into human hands. Purpose can be built without pretending it was installed. Choosing evidence over comfort is difficult, but it leads to clearer understanding. The moon remains constant. Our explanations change. Recognizing why purpose feels satisfying helps prevent replacing ancient myth with modern illusion. Clarity grows when curiosity accepts uncertainty without inventing hidden intent in the sky. Learning this difference protects wonder, while grounding belief in reality and shared human experience across time for thoughtful understanding today. The internet did not invent the alien Anunnaki idea, but it transformed it. What once lived in niche books and late-night television found a system designed to amplify certainty, not caution. Algorithms reward content that triggers emotion. Anger, fear, awe, and revelation travel faster than patience. Ancient history is complex, slow, and uncertain. The internet prefers simple answers delivered quickly. Into that environment, the Anunnaki story fit perfectly. Forums were the first accelerators. Online communities formed around alternative history where skepticism of authority was a shared value. Academic disagreement became proof of cover-up. Members reinforced each other through repetition. Claims were rarely checked against original sources because access to translations and training takes time. Instead, screenshots, summaries, and quotes without context circulated. Over time, familiarity replaced evidence. What is repeated feels true. Short-form video pushed this further. Clips lasting seconds cannot explain cuneiform grammar or archaeological method. They can show dramatic images. A tablet, a pyramid, a planet. Captions do the rest. Ancient words are reduced to modern meaning in a single line. Nuance disappears. Certainty remains. The viewer is not invited to question. They are invited to share. Memes are especially powerful. They compress ideas into symbols. An image of a god becomes an astronaut. A word like Anunnaki becomes shorthand for hidden truth. Once an idea becomes a meme, it no longer needs accuracy, it needs recognition. People share what feels clever or revealing. The original meaning is irrelevant. Algorithms learn from this behavior. Content that performs well is shown more often. Extreme claims outperform careful explanation. As a result, measured voices are buried. Specialists who speak cautiously struggle to compete with bold assertions. This is not a conspiracy. It is a system optimized for engagement. The effect is distortion. Ancient history becomes a set of talking points rather than a field of study. Words like Anunnaki, Nibiru, and cuneiform are stripped of context and used as proof of conclusions already reached. Complexity is treated as evasion. Simplicity is treated as honesty. This environment reshapes belief. Many people encounter the Anunnaki story online before they ever hear about Mesopotamia itself. The first explanation they receive feels authoritative because it is confident and repeated. By the time they meet scholarly disagreement, the belief is already formed. Correction feels like attack. Historical facts do not spread as easily because they resist compression. Explaining how tablets are translated takes time. Explaining uncertainty requires humility. These traits are not rewarded by viral systems. As a result, misinformation does not need to be persuasive. It only needs to be present often enough. Understanding this process matters. It explains why ideas, unsupported by evidence, persist. They are not sustained by proof. They are sustained by structure. The internet turns curiosity into identity. Once a belief becomes part of who someone is, letting go feels like loss. The Anunnaki meme is not just about ancient gods. It is about how modern systems shape knowledge. When speed replaces depth and confidence replaces method, history becomes raw material for belief rather than understanding. Recognizing this does not require rejecting curiosity. It requires slowing it down. Ancient history survives careful reading, not viral certainty. The past cannot defend itself online. It depends on readers willing to pause, question, and resist the pull of easy answers that feel complete but are not. Archaeology works within limits, and those limits are its strength. It deals in material evidence. Objects can be measured. Sites can be dated. Texts can be compared. When archaeologists say something is known, it is because it rests on physical traces that can be examined by anyone with the tools and training. Clay tablets exist. Temples exist, cities exist. Their age can be tested. Their contents can be checked. This is the foundation of evidence-based history. From archaeology, we can confirm that the Anunnaki appear in Sumerian and Akkadian texts. We can confirm where those texts were found, how old they are, and what language they use. We can compare multiple copies of the same myth and track how meanings shift over time. We can confirm that ancient people worshipped gods connected to the moon, the sun, water, and law. We can confirm calendars, rituals, and administrative systems tied to lunar cycles. These claims are grounded because they leave traces. What archaeology cannot confirm is intention beyond material record. It cannot confirm secret missions, hidden bases, or advanced technology that left no residue. A base large enough to house beings would leave structures, tools, waste, or altered landscapes. None exist. A technology capable of moving celestial bodies would leave signatures in geology and astronomy. None are found. Absence of evidence is not always evidence of absence, but patterns matter. When nothing appears where much should, claims weaken. Unfalsifiable ideas present a problem. A claim that evidence was removed, hidden, or disguised cannot be tested. It cannot be proven wrong because any contradiction becomes part of the story. This removes it from historical inquiry. Archaeology depends on falsifiability. A theory must risk failure. If it cannot be challenged, it cannot be confirmed. This distinction matters because it protects knowledge. Evidence-based claims can be revised as new discoveries appear. Unfalsifiable claims never change. They only grow more elaborate. History advances through correction. Conspiracy advances through insulation. Dates are another anchor. Archaeology can place events within ranges. We know when certain cities flourished. We know when writing emerged. We know when specific myths were copied. Claims that place advanced spacefaring beings in these periods must match that timeline. They do not. The technology described in pseudoscientific narratives has no parallel in the archaeological record. Stone tools remain stone tools. Metal advances follow known sequences. There is no gap where impossible machines once existed. Context also constrains interpretation. Tablets found in temples served religious and administrative functions. Their language reflects that use. Reading them as technical manuals ignores where they were stored and how they were used. Archaeology does not study words in isolation. It studies environments. Drawing a firm line does not limit imagination. It protects clarity. When archaeology says what it can confirm, it invites trust. When it says what it cannot, it invites humility. Problems arise when speculation fills the space where evidence ends and then claims authority. Understanding this line helps evaluate claims responsibly. Evidence supports ancient religion, governance, and astronomy as human achievements shaped by environment and belief. It does not support hidden alien programs. The difference is not subtle. It is foundational. Archaeology does not answer every question. It answers the ones it can. Respecting that boundary keeps history honest and prevents the past from becoming a blank screen for modern fears and desires. If the Anunnaki truly had a specific purpose involving the moon, the ancient record would reflect it clearly, not through hints or metaphors, but through consistent description. Mesopotamian texts are detailed when something matters. They record grain amounts, temple inventories, ritual steps, and astronomical observations with care. When gods perform actions of consequence, those actions are named and repeated across sources. A moon project would not be subtle. It would leave a trail. First, we would expect explicit language. Texts would describe the moon as made, placed, altered, or controlled. Verbs would indicate construction or manipulation. Instead, lunar references describe observation, worship, and omen reading. The moon appears as a sign, not a device. It marks time. It signals divine mood. It does not function as an object of labor. Second, we would expect consistency. Important beliefs appear across cities and centuries. If the Anunnaki had engineered the moon, multiple traditions would echo the idea. Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, and Assyrian sources would converge. They do not. The moon god's sin is central everywhere, but his role is religious. No text credits the Anunnaki with creating or installing the moon. Third, we would expect ritual emphasis. Mesopotamian religion revolved around reenactment. Creation stories were performed. Sacred acts were remembered through ceremony. There is no ritual commemorating a moon construction or arrival. Festivals celebrate cycles, not origins. This silence matters. Material evidence would also exist. A belief in a moon purpose would shape architecture, art, and symbolism. Temples might depict the act. Seals might show gods working on celestial objects. Reliefs might preserve the moment. None do. Lunar imagery focuses on the crescent as a sign of divinity, not as a tool or structure. Administrative texts offer another check. If the moon served a function beyond timekeeping, it would affect policy. Records might link specific lunar positions to divine operations or commands. Instead, they link phases to scheduling. The moon governs when, not how. Language itself is revealing. Cuneiform terms for making, building, and shaping are well attested. They appear in contexts like city walls, canals, and temples. They do not appear in lunar passages. When gods create, they do so through naming and ordering. That reflects worldview. Creation is authority, not assembly. Some argue that knowledge was hidden. This claim fails because Mesopotamian culture did not hide sacred knowledge in this way. Priests guarded ritual expertise, but myths were shared. Kings inscribed divine acts publicly to legitimize rule. A moon purpose would be powerful propaganda. It would not be concealed. Comparisons matter too. Other ancient cultures tracked the moon. None describe it as artificial. Independent convergence would strengthen the claim. Instead, lunar myths vary widely while remaining symbolic. The absence of evidence here is not accidental. It aligns with what the texts are meant to do. They explain order, morality, and time. They do not explain engineering. Asking what the texts would show clarifies the issue. They would show clarity, repetition, and material reflection. They do not. What we have instead is a rich record of how humans related to the moon as a ruler of time and meaning. The idea of an Anunnaki moon purpose exists outside the ancient record. It is a modern overlay placed on texts that say something else. Understanding what evidence would look like makes its absence unmistakable. Myth is not failed science. It is a different way of recording truth. Ancient societies used myth to organize values, power, and identity. When a culture tells a creation story, it is not explaining physics. It is explaining why the world feels ordered and where humans fit within it. Reading myth responsibly begins with respecting that purpose. In Mesopotamia, myths served as maps of society. They explained why kings ruled, why laws mattered, and why rituals had power. Gods embodied forces people experienced daily. Floods, droughts, time, and death were given faces and names. This made the world understandable and survivable. Myth translated fear into structure. Symbolic language is central to this process. When a god separates heaven and earth, it means limits exist. When a god fixes destiny, it means outcomes feel constrained. These ideas are psychological and social. Treating them as technical instructions misses their function. Myth speaks in metaphor because metaphor reaches deeper than literal description. Responsible reading asks simple questions. Who wrote this text? Where was it used? Who heard it? A hymn sung in a temple serves a different purpose than a legal code. A myth recited during a festival reinforces identity. None of these are manuals. They are performances that bind communities. Context protects meaning. When myths are removed from their setting and read through modern expectations, distortion follows. Technology becomes the default explanation because technology dominates modern life. Ancient people did not think this way. Their highest tools were ritual language and shared belief. Calling myth symbolic technology helps clarify its role. It is technology because it organizes behavior. It is symbolic because it works through meaning rather than mechanics. Calendars, myths, and rituals coordinated labor and loyalty long before machines could. This is not primitive, it is effective. Modern pseudoscience often fails because it refuses symbolism. It demands literal answers from texts, not meant to provide them. This creates false conflict between myth and science. In reality, they answer different questions. Science explains how. Myth explains why people care. Respecting myth does not require belief, it requires listening. Ancient texts tell us what mattered to those who wrote them. They reveal fear, hope, hierarchy, and imagination. They do not hide blueprints. When myths are read responsibly, they become richer. The Anunnaki are no longer mysterious engineers. They are reflections of how ancient societies understood authority and order. The moon is no longer a device. It is a rhythm that shaped life. This approach also protects history from misuse. When myth is treated as literal secret knowledge, it becomes a tool for modern agendas. Reading symbolically prevents that. It keeps the past intact. A responsible method accepts complexity. It allows uncertainty. It resists easy answers. It values translation, context, and comparison. It understands that ancient people were intelligent but lived in a different conceptual world. By reading myth as cultural truth, not engineering report, we honor both ancient creativity and modern knowledge. The goal is not to strip myth of wonder. It is to place that wonder where it belongs, in human meaning-making, not hidden machines. In Mesopotamia, the moon had a clear and supported purpose, grounded in daily life and state power. It was not mysterious machinery or hidden design. It was a divine sign visible to everyone. The moon's cycle organized time in a world that depended on coordination to survive. Its meaning was reinforced through religion, ritual, and governance working together. The moon was personified as the god Sin, also called Nana. He was not distant. He was orderly, wise, and dependable. His regular return symbolized stability. Temples dedicated to him stood in major cities like and Haran. These were not minor shrines. They were central institutions tied to economic storage, education, and administration. Worship of the moon god linked the heavens directly to the functioning of society. As a calendar anchor, the moon defined the structure of months. Each new crescent marked a beginning. That beginning mattered. Contracts took effect, debts were counted, labor obligations started or ended. The moon turned celestial motion into legal reality. Without it, agreement would fracture. With it, time became shared. Ritual life revolved around lunar phases. Certain days were favorable, others were dangerous. Priests observed the sky and advised rulers accordingly. This was not superstition in isolation. It was a system for managing risk. When eclipses occurred, they were treated as serious warnings. Substitute kings might be installed temporarily to absorb divine anger. These actions show how seriously lunar signs were taken. The moon shaped behavior at the highest level. Politically, control of the calendar meant control of society. Kings aligned themselves with correct observance to claim legitimacy. Inscriptions praise rulers who honored the gods by keeping time properly. Failures in governance were often blamed on ritual neglect. The moon thus became a measure of good rule. Authority flowed from proper alignment with celestial order. The moon also unified regions. Shared observation allowed distant cities to operate on the same schedule. This mattered for trade, taxation, and military coordination. The moon was a public reference that required no tools beyond sight and tradition. Its power came from visibility. Importantly, Mesopotamian texts never described the moon as an object built or manipulated. Its purpose was relational. It linked gods, humans, and kings in a shared system of meaning. The moon did not act. It signaled. Humans responded. Understanding this restores clarity. The moon's purpose in Mesopotamia was not secret. It was explicit and repeated. It regulated time, sanctified authority, and structured ritual life. These functions are well documented across centuries of tablets and inscriptions. When modern ideas search for hidden purposes, they overlook what is already present. The moon mattered because it worked. It kept people in sync. It gave rulers a framework. It gave priests a role. It gave communities rhythm. This purpose does not diminish wonder. It explains why the moon appears so often in ancient thought. It was constant, dependable, and powerful without force. Its influence was social, spiritual, and political at the same time. Returning to the historical record shows that the moon's role was profound without being artificial. It shaped civilization through shared belief and shared time. That was its purpose. The moon's purpose in nature is not assigned. It emerges from interaction. Over billions of years, its presence shaped Earth in ways that allowed complexity to grow. This influence was gradual, constant, and measurable. It did not act with intent, but its effects created conditions where life could adapt and endure. One of the moon's most important roles is stabilizing Earth's axial tilt. Earth leans as it spins, creating seasons. Without a large moon, that tilt would vary chaotically. Planets without stabilizing moons experience extreme shifts that disrupt climate. Earth avoided this fate. The moon's gravitational pull kept the tilt within a narrow range over long spans of time. This stability allowed ecosystems to develop without being erased repeatedly by sudden climate swings. Tides are another key influence. The moon's gravity pulls ocean water into rhythmic motion. These tides did more than move water. They mixed nutrients along coastlines. They created shallow pools that filled and dried regularly. Many scientists believe these environments helped early life adapt from ocean to land. Repeated exposure to changing conditions encouraged resilience. The moon did not guide evolution, but it created pressure that shaped it. Biological rhythms followed. Many species evolved behaviors tied to lunar cycles. Reproduction, feeding, and migration often align with moon phases. These patterns improved survival. Over time, they became embedded in biology. Humans are part of this story. Sleep patterns, activity levels, and cultural timing all responded to lunar light and tides. Night illumination mattered deeply in pre-modern life. The moon extended vision beyond daylight. This allowed movement, hunting, and gathering after sunset. It also increased risk. Predators hunted more effectively. Humans learned to plan accordingly. Awareness of lunar cycles became part of survival knowledge passed across generations. The moon also influenced long-term climate indirectly. Tides affect ocean circulation. Circulation moves heat around the planet. Over thousands and millions of years, this contributes to climate rhythms that shape habitats. The moon is not a climate controller, but it is part of the system. Remove it, and Earth would behave differently. This natural purpose does not require planning. It arises from physics. Gravity does what gravity does. Over time, systems respond. Some outcomes are destructive. Others create balance. Earth happened to benefit from this arrangement. That does not imply design, it implies contingency. Human civilization emerged within these conditions. Stable seasons allowed agriculture, predictable tides supported fishing and trade, night light influenced social organization. Over time, these factors shaped culture, technology, and belief. The moon became important because it mattered practically. Looking at this long view reframes the question of purpose. Purpose does not have to mean intention, it can mean function. The moon functioned as a stabilizer and rhythm maker. Life adapted to that function. This perspective does not strip meaning away. It places meaning in relationship rather than origin. The moon mattered because Earth responded to it. Civilization grew because nature provided consistency long enough for learning and memory to accumulate. When people ask why the moon exists, nature answers with process, not plan. Collisions, gravity, and time produced an outcome that happened to support life. That outcome then shaped intelligence capable of noticing it. The moon's purpose in nature is written in tides, bones, climate, and calendars. It is not hidden. It is continuous. It does not belong to gods or aliens. It belongs to interaction across deep time. Understanding this does not make the moon smaller. It makes the story larger and more grounded in reality. The final answer is less dramatic than many hope, but it is stronger because it holds up. There is no credible evidence that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial beings who built or used the moon for a hidden mission. Ancient texts do not describe such an act. Archaeology does not support it. Astronomy does not require it. The idea persists not because it is proven, but because it is satisfying. The cost of wanting a single secret answer is distortion. When people want purpose to come from outside humanity, they overlook what humans actually did. Mesopotamian societies built meaning through observation, discipline, and belief. They did not inherit a moon purpose. They assigned one. That assignment shaped calendars, laws, rituals, and power. It was real in its effects, even if it was symbolic in origin. The moon became important because humans made it important. They watched it carefully. They aligned life around it. Over time, this attention turned into structure. Timekeeping allowed coordination. Coordination allowed agriculture. Agriculture allowed cities. Cities allowed civilization. None of this required intervention from beyond Earth. It required patience, memory, and shared agreement. The Anunnaki story as aliens replaces this human achievement with external credit. It suggests civilization needed help. That suggestion can feel comforting or exciting, but it diminishes the record. Ancient people were not passive recipients of advanced knowledge. They were active observers, adapting to their environment with the tools they had. Their myths reflect that struggle. Science offers its own conclusion. The moon formed through natural processes. Its influence on Earth shaped tides, climate, and stability. Life adapted. Humans emerged within that system and learned to read it. The moon mattered because it worked. It provided rhythm and light. It gave humans a reference point in a changing world. The desire for a final hidden answer often comes from discomfort with uncertainty. A built moon implies intention. Intention implies meaning assigned from above. A natural moon leaves meaning to humans. That responsibility can feel heavy. It means purpose is not discovered, it is created. The cost of wanting an external purpose is giving up agency. When answers come from aliens, gods, or secret planners, humans become spectators. History becomes a puzzle rather than a record of effort. The past turns into mystery instead of lesson. The evidence does not support an Anunnaki moon mission. What it supports is something quieter and more impressive. Humans survived by paying attention. They turned the sky into a schedule. They turned cycles into culture. They turned observation into order. This does not end wonder. It changes its focus. The moon remains extraordinary, not because it was placed, but because life responded to it. Meaning grew from interaction over time. The real purpose of the moon is not hidden in ancient tablets or lost technology. It is visible in calendars, rituals, biology, and history. It is the purpose humans built because they needed it to live. Accepting this answer costs fantasy. It costs the thrill of secret knowledge. What it gives in return is clarity. It gives respect to ancient cultures as thinkers rather than props. It gives credit to nature without removing meaning. It gives humans ownership of their story. The moon does not owe us a final answer. It already gave us what we needed: time, rhythm, light in darkness. Everything else was built below it.